All right, welcome everyone to our two-day event here. So it's just 1 o'clock. People are just joining, so we'll just give everyone a minute or so to get on board here. But again, want to welcome everyone for coming to our two-day event, navigating the coronavirus. You know, how to not only survive but thrive in these times. And we have our four guest speakers. For this two-day event, we're gonna have two today and two tomorrow. So we'll just give another, maybe just a couple more seconds for people to jump on. I can see people are jumping on now, so that's awesome. So maybe we'll just get started. So again, I'm Deepak Saini. I'm hosting this event, and I will also be talking a little bit later today. And our other distinguished speaker for today, I'll introduce him, is Walter Wirch. Am I pronouncing that right?
That is exactly right. Yeah.
Right. So, well, perfect. And then I'll also mention, we have our two other speakers, Danica D'Souza and David West, who will be speaking tomorrow. So make sure you turn in for tomorrow. And if you have any questions that come up, we will do a little bit of a presentation, both Walter and myself, and we'll address questions at the end. So at any time, just throw your questions into the Q&A, and we will get to them towards the end. So Walter, what can I talk about Walter? So Walter has been helping people his entire career with their financial well-being here. I do have a bit of a script, but I'm just gonna go off script and talk from the heart here. So I haven't known Walter too long, but guy with super integrity, super love from his heart, and I know he comes across that with his clients as well, and using his proven methods, his 5-step program to help his clients achieve their financial goals. So Walter, maybe if I missed anything, beautiful family, love spending time outdoors and getting out into the mountains. I know they're huge skiers. So I don't know, are you happy with the warm weather coming, or sad that the ski hills are, well, I guess you're not going up to ski hills now anyway,
yeah, we did make it out once this year, which is good. But yeah, then with the virus coming about, we of course haven't made it out. But it's nice to see the warm weather. It's a nice break from the winter, and this winter has carried on a little longer than normal. So sure, enjoying the warm weather. Gonna get out there later today and hopefully enjoy some of that.
For sure. So let's just jump right into it. So Walter's going to talk about the stock market, where we're at now, where we've come from. So, I guess Walter, it wasn't too long ago, we were pretty much saying all-time highs. And then, of course, we've had probably a double whammy. I don't want to steal your thunder here, but obviously a double whammy of the coronavirus and some other, geopolitical factors. And I guess we hit a low of, a couple of weeks back, maybe almost a month ago now, and we've seen a bit of a recovery. But where are we at now? I'll take it away.
Yeah, you nailed it all right in the head. My job is done.
We need to fill the time somehow, so go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. So to me, the coronavirus was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back here. When you look at the stock market and where things are at, and I've been talking about this for the last 2 years, that the value of the stock market is so inflated and so high that a crash was coming. It was bound to happen. We just never know when it's going to happen. The fact that the coronavirus kind of pushed it over the edge helped it to bring it in line. But even with this correction that's going on right now, the market is actually, believe it or not, still overvalued. It's hard to find a good company or a good investment right now that is on sale. So you just got to keep an eye out there for some good buys. And actually, you know what? I'm going to make a disclosure right here. Anything I'm talking about is not investment advice. And the reason for that is because I am not your personal financial advisor. All right. So anything I talk about is strictly for educational purposes only, illustration purposes only. And so yes, but if you guys do have questions, by all means, ask. And I do encourage you actually to key in your questions right now, and maybe we'll get Deepak to ask those questions. But I'd rather have this an interaction with you guys and answer questions you guys have about yourself personally than me talking about what I think might be happening. So I'd rather hear from you guys. So please key in your questions. But yeah, so for sure, the stock market has been overvalued. I've been talking about that for the last 2 years for sure, probably even more than that. And if you look at other stock market crashes, 1929, 1987, This one doesn't seem to be a whole lot different. The crash is we're in it. And so the next question is, are we in for it more, or are we coming out of it? So I'll give you a little bit of background here. What has happened with this crash is, of course, the coronavirus kind of pushed it over the edge, brought prices down or valuations down. And what the government has done, and I always talk from the US point of view, by the way, because they're the ones that are leading the economy. So it's always US focused. But the feds, what they've done is they've lowered interest rates to astronomical lows to stimulate the economy. And then, of course, the government as well is printing out money even faster than they've ever done before. I think they promised like $6 trillion infusion of cash into the economy. And both of those things that the government has done and the feds have done is stimulating the economy right now. So we went through the crash because of the coronavirus, and now we're seeing like we're starting to come out of it because of all this stuff the government is doing and the feds are doing by stimulating the economy. So here's my question to you guys is, where are things going to move forward? It's just a matter of time where, you know, more and more people are going to start declaring bankruptcy. There's going to be more and more layoffs. I heard somebody saying that, you know, we're going to see 15% unemployment rate, which is huge. All of these things are going to play effect on the stock market moving down the road. So my personal opinion, my personal belief is that we're not over this yet. Things are going to get worse before they get better, even though we do see some correction going in the right direction right now. I don't think we're going to last on a good upswing. Now I could be wrong, because the stock market is very irrational. It's full of emotions, and rational thinkers versus irrational thinkers. Anything can happen, but I suspect that we should see a more of a correction because more layoffs are going to happen and so forth.
So we did have, if I can just jump in here, Walter, a question come through the chat, and I'll just encourage everyone online, you put it in the Q&A box and not the chat box, but we did have a question that came in from the chat. So do you think the market will continue to revalue downward for the next days, weeks, months until it is properly valued?
Sorry, Deepak, hang on one second.
Oh, there we go. Running live. We lost our speaker. Oh, he's back. Awesome.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So where are we headed for the next few days or weeks or months or whatever? That was the question?
Yes.
Yeah, it's always too hard to say because the market is so irrational. We don't know for sure when a crash is going to happen or when we're going to come out of it. That's always the big question. When is that going to happen? So I guess the best thing to do is, like, in the longer term, the stock market does eventually act rational. Eventually prices get to a point where they're more stable and more in line with what the values should be. So now, with that said, we can also take advantage of this situation here. You know, with the prices coming down, getting back into the market to some degree makes some sense, and then waiting for the next correction to happen or more of a downslide and averaging down and getting back in makes some more sense as well too. And we call that tranching, which is steps to get back into the market. So yeah, it's, I mean, the average stock market crash happens anywhere between, say, well, actually it could be anywhere from 1 day to maybe up to 18 months for a correction to come out of a correction. And 1 day, like for example, the Black Monday in 1987 was a decrease of 25% in the market in 1 day. That was the largest correction we've ever had in 1 day. So, and that was a crash, and it started recovering the very next day. So from that point of view, just take advantage of those opportunities when the stock market does go through these lows. Get back in when the time is right, and really take a good look at the value of the investment. And actually, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you guys a couple of tools here that you can walk away with to make yourselves better investors. So make sure you have a pen and paper handy, and I'll give those to you before I take off at the end of this presentation. So, and those tools will make you a better investor. So I'll give those to you at the end of the presentation.
So Walter, I have a question here.
Yeah.
So I guess we're a bit of a down market today. We're live here April 21st, 2020. A bit of a down day today, but we've been relatively strong for the last couple of weeks off this bottom. But I'm a bit more. I don't know about you, and you can give us your take on that. I'm a bit more of a technical kind of guy. trader. So we kind of got up to above the 50-day moving average, sort of sat there for like a day, and now we're correcting. So do you think that was sort of a ceiling, and we're going to sort of go lower, retest the lows that we had about a month ago, or what do you think? And if you're not a technical guy, then that's fine. But
yeah, no, now we're really getting into the weeds here, aren't we? But yeah, so I followed the indicators as well too, and they seem to help for the most part. My philosophy is really following Warren Buffett and how he invests. These strategies that I use go back to Benjamin Graham, who taught Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett actually made the investing world a little bit better. And then when Warren Buffett met Charlie Munger made these strategies even that much better. So the strategies that I use are very much Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and even Benjamin Graham back in the 1930s. So these are strategies, for example, like Benjamin Graham in the 1930s was pulling off 20% rates of returns. And that was just finding really good quality investments at a really good price. And that hasn't changed for 85 years. And we call these people the super investors. Actually, I got if you guys want this, it's called the Super Investors of Graham and Doddsville. And these are guys that originally learned all these strategies from Benjamin Graham back in the 1930s. And these are just strategies that have worked very well and have been very solid for 85 plus years. And yeah, so if you guys want, just let me know and I'll send that out, get that sent out to you guys in an email.
So Walter, so essentially your philosophy where you work on, you personally, and I guess with your clients, is sort of like, I guess a term would be a value investor. Would that be correct?
That is the best term I could say is a value investor. And price and value are two different things. Price is what you pay for something, and value is what you get. And the three most important words in investing is margin of safety. And that is buying a really good investment or a really good quality investment on sale. And I usually say, you're buying a $20 bill for 10 bucks. And so when I say right now, the value of the stock market is still overvalued, we're actually probably paying about 25 bucks for a $20 bill right now. And what we're waiting for is the values go down to about 10 bucks before we get back in. And so it's just a matter of waiting and being patient. And Charlie Munger says that being patient is key to investing in the stock market. He says you don't get rich by investing in the stock market or buying or selling in the stock market. You get rich by being patient and waiting for those days that come and getting into the market when it is a good time to get in the market. So actually, I'm going to back up to what you're talking about, the indicators. I do look at them to some degree to look at the trends. And when it kind of falls out of those trends, that would be a good time to consider, is now time to be getting back in or time to be getting back out.
Okay, so back to my original question is we kind of touched above, or some people would say a bullish signal would be, if the 20 crosses the 50. I don't want to get too technical here, but we certainly were well below the 50-day moving average. We just touched it, went over, I think kind of hung around that for like a day, maybe two, and now we've sort of corrected the last two sessions, including today. So is this maybe, again, back to that ceiling, and we'll sort of go down. So just using your math, what you said earlier, at $25 and you want to buy at 10, and where we're at now, that would imply, rough math here, right, that, the lows we had for a month ago, again, it's not irrational all the time, but we could see that again, or we take off with some sort of recovery because of all the stimulus, and then it's off to the races and it's not really rational and you're overpaying. Am I kind of in a nutshell sort of understand that?
Yeah, I would say you're bang on there. Like I said, we're still overvalued. And one of these tools, actually grab your pen and paper, I'll give that to you right now. One of the tools that I look at quite a bit is called the Shiller PE, SHILLER PE, and PE stands for price earnings. And it's a ratio. And that's where, that tells us where the stock market is. If we're overvalued, undervalued, is now a good time to be buying, or is now a good time to be selling. And so that I would rather use as more of an indicator on whether we should be getting in or out. The technical indicators are more of a short-term type of idea, like the moving average. I use two other ones when it comes to looking at the technical indicators. And I just call it a 3 arrows exercise. But that tells me two other things as well too, is, is now a good time to be getting in, or is now a good time to be getting out? And all the professionals use this on a consistent basis. It's nothing new. I should say it's nothing new to the people that are in the business, but they don't share this information with people in the market or the consumer. But it's just one of those things that I use to keep me in line on what's happening with the stock market. And so, yeah, it's two other indicators that I use to see where we're at.
So I'll just mention that. So Walter is going to give us some tools here at the end and what have you. But for sure, for everyone who's registered for this event, we'll after the event send a link with all these tools and links to the recordings of these videos and anything else that any Walter or otherwise any of the other speakers have mentioned. We'll send that to everyone. So if you don't quite catch it, don't worry, we'll send that to you. So Walter, let me throw another question at you. So you kind of mentioned earlier that for about last 2 years you kind of thought it was overvalued and then sort of tranche buying. Would that imply that whether personally or kind of with your clients, you were sitting in some cash then and are ready to maybe take this opportunity to buy quality names at, let's call it, fair value, or at least discounted to where they were before?
Yeah. So what we did is we actually ended up buying a few different things. So we still have a fair amount of cash. But I'm being pretty active right now. I'm trying to take advantage of the swings in the market right now. And so I'm getting a little more technical personally. It's not what I would normally recommend for my clients. So it's kind of two different situations there. So what I'm normally doing for my clients right now is just staying put. I've only got like 2 clients that stayed in the market and they lost money because they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen. But the vast majority of my other clients have done fairly well because they haven't lost any money. So from the peak there till the trough there, depends which market you're in. The Dow Jones was down 30% and the SPY was down 35%. And so it depends how aggressive you were. You could be down up to about 40%. But would you rather not lose money, which is, there's only one rule to investing, which is don't lose money, which is what Warren Buffett has been preaching for many, many years. And so I've managed to do that. So for my clients, I'm still staying put, staying conservative. And when we see more of a correction, it'll be time to get more aggressive and riding out. And just like I said, Charlie Munger, being patient, now's the time to be patient and get back in when the values are looking much better than they are now.
So Walter, you said just only a couple clients lost money. Would that imply they have now sold at the bottom, or they're just down in their portfolio, but they're still holding? And if there should be some recovery at some point, so they haven't lost money per se, it's paper money only. They haven't crystallized those losses, I guess, correct?
That would be the best word for it, yeah. So now the thing, when you start looking at that, so they have to wait, probably 5 years before they recover out of it, where the vast majority of my clients, if we get back in another month, 2 months, or 6 months from now, they're going to ride that wave moving forward. So where would you rather be? Would you be riding the wave in the next few months coming back out of this, or waiting for the recovery to fully happen in another, say, 5 years? If that makes sense.
Yeah, Walter, I do have a question. We have one questions coming through the Q&A. So maybe I'll ask the listeners question first, and then I'll come back to my question.
Okay.
So the two-parter. So I guess the question is, are you recommending to maybe short then if the market's going to go down, or rather wait? And then I guess, or a second question, do you recommend trading the indices as a way to have a smoother chart to follow as opposed to individual names? If I didn't understand your question properly, please clarify.
Okay. Yeah, we're getting, when we're talking about short selling and stuff like this, we're really getting into the weeds again as well too. So I would say as a general rule, the stock market always has a tendency to want to go up. Just, there's some buoyancy there. So I always, when you're short selling, it's just a little, it's more risky than just getting into the stock market, because over the long term, a stock market wants to go up. We do go through these recoveries and corrections every once in a while, and a recession happens about once every 10 years. So I just caution people on doing a short sell that it is a riskier type of way to invest. And sorry, what was the second part of that question?
If buying indices might be a little bit smoother than buying individual names.
Yeah, and what I would say is, if you want to be in a smoother environment, I would say even just a more of a balanced approach might even be better. So maybe some fixed income in there as well as some equities, and then waiting for the correction to start coming back, and then getting more aggressive in a portfolio where you're getting more into equities. So where the vast majority of your investments are in equities. So, I mean, indices is one way to do that for sure. But like I said, I'd rather see a more balanced approach where there's some fixed income and some equities I would think would be a better option.
And I'll jump in for Walter there, but I think he would say that's very individualized to the person, right? For your own portfolio and what have you. So my question, Walter, is you had mentioned just a minute ago, it might be 5 years before we have sort of recovery back to where we were 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, wherever the peak was. But what's your take on all the stimulus that's coming in? And I certainly agree with you that we haven't seen the peak of unemployment. We haven't seen bankruptcies yet, and there'll be some hardship there for sure. But with all the stimulus and we have, at least in the U.S., which is the biggest market in the world, an election coming up, that there just won't be a will to just overinflate and make things work. So what's your take on that? That the recovery might just be a false recovery, but might happen sooner, at least from a market valuation.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Trump is doing everything he can to stay in, and by him just trying to stay in and get voted back in, he's going to do everything he possibly can to make sure that everything looks rosy and nice, and he can just make it look like he's done a really good job, and by stimulating the economy, it'll be a much better chance for him to get reelected. But that to me we can only leverage so much, and before it catches up to us, you can only print so much cash. You can only drop interest rates so low. And eventually that comes back to bite you. You can even do that on a personal level. The more money you borrow, it has a tendency to come back and bite you when things get tough. Or if you didn't borrow the money, you have a much better chance of coming out of it much better than you would have if you were versus borrowing money moving forward. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense to me. And you mentioned interest rates there. So I think that's a good segue. I'll just mention that tomorrow we're going to have Danica D'Souza on, who's going to talk about mortgages and interest rates and where we're at right now. So just a little teaser for tomorrow. So Walter, maybe now's a good point. We don't have any fresh questions right now, and we'll certainly come back. Obviously, we have Q&A at the end. So anyone, please pop your question in there. But maybe now's a good point to talk about your tools or your steps before we move on.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested, like I said, I'll email this to us. Like I said, it's the Super Investors of Graham and Doddsville. It's a little article, probably 20-minute read, but there's some really good information in there. And the super investors of the world are the people that have learned from Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett, and so forth. So I talked to you earlier about Shiller PE. That is a good tool to use to help you think of where the stock market is, whether we're overvalued or undervalued, and it's now a good time to be in or out of the market. So like I said, Shiller PE, SHILLER. There's another tool I use, it's called the Buffett Indicator. And again, that is, of course, Warren Buffett came up with this indicator that, again, tells you whether the economy is strong or if things are overvalued and so forth. So that's another good one as well, too. Just some helpful websites. GuruFocus.com is a really good website. ValueInvestorsClub.com. And I also use SeekingAlpha.com. And then I got some books as well too. My favorite book, investment book of all time, is a book called The Dondo Investor, which is written by Manesh Prabhai. And what he talks about is so the whole concept behind the book is creating something out of nothing. And the story that he talks about is the Patel family. And the Patel family moved to the US back in 1970s, and they bought one hotel, and he came up with $5,000 to buy this hotel as a down payment, bought the hotel or motel for $100,000. And the Patel family is now worth about $78 or $80 billion because of a $5,000 investment back in the 1970s. So that's what Manesh Prabhai talks about, is creating something out of nothing, or creating something out of very little. So that's a really good read, Manesh Prabhai, The Dondo Investor. So I'd say go grab that book. It's a really good read. And yeah, so hopefully those are some tools that will help you out. And
yeah, so Walter, again, I just want to mention to everyone, we will send all these resources with the video recordings after the two-day event is over. We did have another question. I think we might will just squeeze it in now as opposed to saving it for the Q&A.
Okay.
So the question is there a minimum that you recommend investing right now?
Yeah, whatever you can do. There is never a bad time to invest. Just get started. And I always say that the first step is always the hardest. So get in. You don't have to be in the market to start investing. And if it's $100 a month, then make it happen. If you haven't started yet, then, talk to, your bank or whoever that is, and just start investing. And yeah, I wouldn't say get into the market just quite yet, but time's going to tell. And right now is a lot of fear. So I think there's more fear to come yet. But I think just being a little more patient here is going to make a lot of sense. And, but yeah, getting started is the big thing.
So quickly, where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I would say the best thing is maybe send me an email. And my email address is wwirch@telus.net. Again, wwirch@telus.net. And that would probably be the easiest, quickest way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So again, I just want to reiterate, if you have any more questions for Walter, we will have Q&A at the end, but we will move on to our next speaker who, miraculously is actually me. So Danica D'Souza, our mortgage broker, and David West, our wills and estate lawyer, will be our speakers tomorrow. But they are on the call if you have questions for them as well during the Q&A. So again, I'm Deepak Saini, and what do I do? So I'm a health, performance, and longevity coach. So what does that mean? I help people, realize the exceptional person that is inside of them and help them draw that out and help them realize that and manifest that for themselves in whatever that aspect that of their life that might be. So just very briefly on me, and you can look up me further on my bio, but essentially went through some health challenges a number of years ago. I was extremely overweight. I ended up hurting my back, and in trying to heal myself through sort of non-traditional medical interventions, as well as lifestyle and nutrition changes, is what helped me heal my back and sort of lose all the weight I was holding on to and come out the other side. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to boost your immunity. So it's very important, especially now in this time we're at with coronavirus and et cetera. So number one thing I want to say is, first of all, listen to what you're being told by our governments, et cetera. Social distancing, washing your hands, et cetera. So, but also point out that these are things we all not the social distancing, but like washing our hands. We learned how to do this when we were 3 years old. So properly washing our hands is not something that should be new to us. So listen to the guidelines and follow what's being recommended in your jurisdiction. That being said, I am completely baffled that there is no mention from any of the health departments, CDC in the US, Health Canada, or even the World Health Organization, on very simple, proven, scientifically proven methodologies to boost your immune system. Essentially, nothing I'm going to talk about here today is going to, if you're in contact, is going to keep you from getting the coronavirus, but boosting your immunity will help you fight off any virus, any infection, whether it be the common cold or flu that comes around, all the time, every year, or something a little bit more dramatic like we're dealing with right now. So some very, very simple things that we all should just be doing anyway for our health, regardless. But definitely, especially during, the cold and flu season, wherever you may live, typically the winter in sort of the northern hemisphere. Number one, get adequate rest. You should be getting adequate rest all the time. Sleep is probably the number one thing you can do for your health, by far. Getting adequate rest. So much of our body and our not only bodies, but our mental, our brain repair happens while we sleep. And I know some of us, we're home, we got the kids and this and that, and Netflix and all this stuff, and we're binging. Hey, that's all great, but make rest and sleep a priority right now for yourself. My kids, I have kids, so they're not going to school. They're doing virtual school right now. So we're trying to keep as best as we can. It's maybe crept up a little bit, but they're still going to bed within reason of what their regular bedtime was. And we're actually letting them sleep in. They don't having to hit the alarm so they can get up and go off to school or go off to daycare before to school. We're letting them get up when their body naturally wakes them up. So they're getting extra rest. And we're trying to do the same ourselves, is to, go to bed at a reasonable time, not stay up late watching the latest things. And, I'll be honest, we splurged and we got Disney Plus, and we got all these new shows and new things to watch now, but we're still trying to, get extra rest, sleep in and wake up when our body tells us, and go to bed at a reasonable time. Now's not the time to skimp out on sleeping. So that's number one. Sleep is super important for your health. Number two, when your body is eating very inflammatory foods, let's call it refined sugars and processed vegetable oils, your body cannot be at its best. So again, in a cold and flu season, I would argue all the time, but especially in the cold and flu season, especially now, well, there's this super virus going around that we need to protect ourselves from. Now's not the time. If there was ever a time to sort of rein it in and maybe take a look at your diet and nutrition and be a little bit healthier, now's the time for sure. So like I go to the grocery store, and it's getting better now. I think the fear has or the over fear is kind of subsided. But think back to 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, when sort of self-quarantining and self-isolation started. You go to the grocery store, there was no shortage of vegetables, there was no shortage of fruit, there was no shortage of meat and dairy, cheese. Everything that was gone was like processed carbs and potato chips and pretzels and chocolate bars and all that stuff. I don't know what people, we won't get into the psychology here of when people get fearful, why they hoard or what have you, but there'll be no lack. And we're getting into the summer months, there'll be even more produce available. Just eat healthier. When your body is inundated with junk food, again, inflammatory sugars, inflammatory processed vegetable oils, etc., it just makes it that much harder for your body to be optimal, to be healthy. And when things are going around, I think you want to boost things up a bit and not give yourself a hit on purpose. Another thing, supplementation. And I'm glad that a lot of people actually know this, because when I go to the grocery store, all the vitamins are the most key vitamins are all sold out, or they have been for the last 5-6 weeks. It's very hard to actually find vitamin C, which is good that people are taking it, because vitamin C is super important, super anti-inflammatory, very, very important. Regardless of time of year, I supplement with vitamin C. I do high dose. And high dose, what does that mean? Somebody can ask a question if they want. I do high dose vitamin C all the time. Where we're at now, I've actually boosted up my kids' vitamins. They're taking extra vitamin C. They're taking extra vitamin D. They're taking extra omega-3 fatty acids as well. So vitamin C, super important. Doesn't hurt. It's for bang for your buck. It is like the cheapest vitamin or supplement that you can take. And our bodies can tolerate well above, sort of recommended guidelines, which are, in my opinion, extremely low. Basically, this, in vitamin C perspective, the dietary guidelines for vitamin C basically just ensures that you don't get scurvy. So I don't want scurvy, but I also want to be exceptional. I want to have exceptional health. I don't want to just be average. And in this time with viruses going around, I don't think it hurts at all to boost up our vitamin C. Vitamin D, which I alluded to. Best source of vitamin D, sunshine, the sun. I live up here in Canada, in Calgary. We are just coming in just now, just like this week, coming into our spring. We can actually get outside and get some sunshine. So very important all times of year. Get outside, get some sunshine, get that vitamin D. You want to expose, it's just not enough to get it on your face or the back of your neck or your hands. You need to get it on your, on your torso and your legs. So we're getting to that point now where we're getting to shorts weather and tank tops, et cetera. So get some vitamin D, very beneficial. And even if you can't, supplement, wintertime or otherwise, supplement with a quality vitamin D, for sure. Very important. Another supplement is zinc. Zinc is very beneficial for its for its bacterial properties. So I would definitely supplement with zinc. Unless you eat a lot of shellfish or certain other foods, it's very hard to get enough zinc in your diet. And you can get tested for this. Very simple. It's a $5 test to get tested for zinc. I got tested, and I don't eat a lot of shellfish. It's not a favorite in our household. I don't mind it, but nobody else wants to eat it. So we don't tend to eat a lot. I tested myself. I was extremely low in zinc. So I have to supplement just to get even at baseline. But I would suggest, again, zinc is very inexpensive to supplement with to boost your immunity. I'm just gonna look at my notes here. Also, very important is de-stressing. I get it. This is unprecedented times. We've never been through this before. Not in humanity, but definitely in all of us in our lifetimes. Have never been through something like this. Certainly where we've been in, told to self-isolate, we're, told to stay at home, not see other people, maybe not working or working from home, being cooped up with everyone. Stress is high. Stress is, in our society, even before this happened, our stress was already really high. Now it's way up here. Stress, and I would consider that, when you're under stress all the time, chronic stress, very damaging to your immune system. So of course we want to protect our immune system right now. So if there was ever a time, if you don't already practice this, if there was ever a time to try and implement some practices to de-stress, now's the time. Whether that be gratitude, doing a gratitude journal, whether that be mindfulness, breath work, meditation. There's plenty of free resources out there. These are all things that I work on with my clients to help them perform at peak, to be exceptional human beings in all aspects of their life. But you don't have to work with someone like me. There's many tools out there. I get questions, when's the best time to meditate? Morning, afternoon? When's a good time to do gratitude? Should I do morning journals? Or the best time is when you're going to do it, right? If you can get 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, 20 minutes in the afternoon, first thing in the morning, it doesn't matter. Just do it. Just things to ground yourself, de-stress. That'll just help your relationships. We're all cooped up. I don't think there's ever been a time, except for vacation or the weekend, where we have a family of 4 where we've all been cooped in together, and resources are limited. The kids have school on, they need to do. I need to work and do my business. My wife needs to work, and the limited resource in our household is computer time, and it can be stressful, and the kids can't see their friends, and they don't have all the outlets they necessarily want. I can't go out and do certain things. I don't have all my outlets. So, and we've certainly seen some frictions in our household. I'm sure it's with many people. So, do anything you can now to reduce stress. It'll help you, manage those relationships, help with your immunity, which is what we're really talking about here. But build that foundation now, because these are things, you can take on, go forward. Once this is all passed and we get back to whatever normal looks like in the future, we'll have these strategies and these tools to help us de-stress in our relationships, at work, et cetera. Yeah, and I guess another thing too is, and people will sometimes ask me, well, isn't there like good stressors? Sure, yes. Yeah. So exercise is a great, stressor that's beneficial. Heat exposure can be a beneficial stressor. Cold exposure can be a beneficial stressor, and the list goes on and on. But the key is those are the stress is in the dose. It's a small dose, and then you kind of overcome it. So you build resiliency in yourself. But at the same time, we'll just use exercise because everyone kind of knows about exercise. Doing the right dose, proper recovery, you can get stronger faster. You can build muscle, you get healthier, etc. Overdo it, you can break down, hurt yourself, get injured, get sick, etc. So again, we're talking about mild stressors in the right dose is okay for us normally, but we don't want that chronic stress. Now, what I would suggest, people are cooped in. I've had people ask me this, before. It's like, oh, I'm kind of stuck at home. I got my weights, or I got my treadmill, whatever. Like, I got extra time. Maybe I'll get the best shape of my life right now because I have this time. I can work out for 2 hours a day or 1 hour a day, whatever the time may be that I didn't have before because of work or what have you. My suggestion would be, if you're not doing anything, get started, because movement, exercise, it's all important. But I wouldn't take it as now's the time to be like, you know what, I'm going to train for that thing I've always wanted to do. I'm going to really ramp it up. Again, exercising too much, or if your body's not ready for it, is a stressor to your body, is a stressor to your immunity system. I don't think now is the time to be adding extra stressors to your body. If you're doing nothing, start walking. If you can, it just depends where you are. Some people are literally locked in their homes and can't leave. Where I'm at, people can at least go outside as long as they have social distancing, etc. I'm fortunate enough that I live out in a rural area. I have lots of open space. I can move around. So if you're doing nothing, just get started. If you're already somewhere on your continuum from starter to high performance athlete, stay within what's in your normal. I wouldn't be pushing it right now. I don't think now is the time to be pushing. Once you get all over this and things get back to some sense of normalcy, yeah, sure, start training for that goal, that race, or what have you. But while we're still in this kind of we don't know phase, probably now is not the time. So again, just sum it all up. We really want to protect our immunity, especially now. We should really be protecting our immunity at all times, especially now, where this virus is going around, very easily transmittable, etc. So sleep well, sleep like you've never slept before, if you can. Now's the time to clean up the diet, or at least don't make as many indulgences. Don't use this as an excuse to go off the wagon. Maybe you don't have maybe you don't have the best diet and you want to make changes. At least stay the course. Don't fall totally off the rails. Don't fall off the cliff now. Now's not the time to do that. Supplement smartly: vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and the other big thing as well, I almost forgot to mention, is alcohol. Alcohol is I know people aren't going to like what I have to say here, but alcohol is a stressor to our body. Within 30 minutes, studies have shown within 30 minutes of consuming alcohol, your immune system takes a hit. So, we're all at home, we want to relax, whatever. Okay, I get it. But, I wouldn't be going to excess for sure. And maybe now's the time to potentially scale back. Or at the very least, if you're going to drink, maybe time it around when you're not going to the grocery store, where you're not having to go out, depending what your situation may be, where maybe you might pick something up. Like if I go to the grocery store, I'll just use myself as an example. I'm going to the grocery store and then I come home, I'm even ramping it up for the next day or two because I don't know if I picked up something. I'm relatively healthy and I could very well have the coronavirus, but not be showing any symptoms. I don't know. So I'm going to ramp up everything for immunity and a few other modalities that I'm not going to talk about today that I do personally. So if that's the case with you, when you get back from the grocery store, maybe that night, maybe it's not the day to have a drink. Maybe 2 days later, no effects, not showing any symptoms. Okay, fine, do your thing. That's fine. I guess just take precaution right now. Our immunity is key right now to fighting anything that we may get from the coronavirus or just general colds and flu season that happen regularly anyway. So that's in a nutshell. That's just a very small piece of what I work on with my clients. And again, before we move on to the Q&A, and please, I'll just mention if you have either questions, either for myself, either for Walter who talked earlier, or for Danica or David on mortgages or wills and estate planning, who will talk tomorrow. Please add your questions to the question box, and all the links will be sent out for these videos, and links, how to contact all of the speakers, etc. And if you want to follow up with any one of us afterwards, by all means. But I'll just quickly say, best way to find me, my website, deepaksainyhealth.com. So that's all I really had to say about, sort of keeping your immune system healthy, not only for in this era we're in right now with the coronavirus, but just in general at all times, and definitely in the cold and flu season. So I'll just maybe invite Walter to come back onto the screen here, and then if we have any further Q&A questions. So Walter, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, any questions for me on what I was talking about?
No, well, I should maybe, what about fasting?
Great question. I should have mentioned that. So fasting is a great way. Fasting can play many, many roles. And for full disclosure, I do intermittent fasting every day. I typically go 16 to 18 hours in between meals. And then I'll have all my sort of 2 meals kind of lumped together in the late afternoon to evening time. So fasting is a great way to your body to have time to heal and repair itself. Autophagy, which I'm not getting into the big definition of it right now, unless somebody has a question on it, but to promote autophagy or cellular cleaning, etc. So I think that's great. If you've never done it and you want to try it, sure, now's a great time. You're at home, you can certainly implement it. That being said, if you've never done, so fasting is a mild stressor for sure. Again, 16 hours. If you're someone who's gone, has to, for whatever reason, either belief-wise or physiologically needs to eat every 2 or 3 hours or something like that, going to, you got to transition into it for sure. So that's something to go into slowly. Now, that being said, for someone like myself, who's used to fasting, or even I've done 24-hour fast before, and there's a lot of people can do 36 or 2-day fasts, etc. So whatever your normal is, you can certainly keep up with that. But I would not, much like exercise, I would not take the time now to say, hey, I'm at home, let's really jack up the autophagy or the cellular cleaning, and let's do a 5-day water fast. I'm not used to that. That'll be a huge stressor to my immune system. So I'm not going to do things that are outside of my normal comfort zone. That is, maybe in the future I will, and I actually plan to some point in the future try like a 3-day fast, and maybe a 5-day in the future. I think 3 days probably will be my max, just because I just like food, quality food too much. But I would certainly not be pushing boundaries now, and I'm not even trying to do 24 hours now, just because that it isn't a stressor getting to that point. So whether it be sleep, alcohol, nutrition, exercise, what have you, don't do extra stressors to your immune system right now, because we really want to protect our immune system in this time frame. So let me think. We have oh, great. We got a comment here. Great information, gentlemen. Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? I'll have a question for you, Walter. I'll throw it back to you on the market there. And I know this is everyone seek your own advice, et cetera. Walter's not giving advice here, but Walter, do you think the low, this recent low that we saw, about a month ago approximately, I know we kind of danced around it a little bit, but do you think we will break that low, or will that be like a floor that we will sort of maybe bounce off of, or are we in a range bound for the next couple of years? Like, no one has a crystal ball, but what's your best take?
Yeah, my best take on that is I don't believe that would be the low. It's just a matter of time that I think we'll break through it again. So I don't believe it's a floor or the floor. I think there's another floor below that. My personal opinion, and again, this is not advice, because the market is very irrational. It's full of irrational thinkers, and so anything can happen. Like I said, I mean, a good example of that, of an irrational market, is losing 25% on Black Friday there, or Black Monday in 1987, down 25%. That's totally irrational. Like, why would that happen? And even the experts don't know what happened. They're trying to figure that out even to this day. What happened back in 1987, and there's no rational thinking around it. Probably what did happen is people got scared in one day and lost 25%. So my take is, I'm going to kind of mention this again as well too, is that I believe bankruptcies are going to ramp up here, as well as unemployment. And with those, how can the market continue to be on an upswing? I believe it'll be more of a downswing than an upswing. So that's my take. And a lot of the gurus that I follow, a lot of them are saying the same thing. And actually, I'm going to grab your pen and paper here. Here's another one, another gentleman that Ray Dalio is his name, D-A-L-I-O. Super smart guy. In his career, over the last 36 years, he's done 18% in his portfolio. So if you want to follow some really good investors, that is one guy to really follow. And he's brilliant. He talks about not only long-term or short-term cycles, but he talks about long-term cycles as well too. And if you YouTube him, there's some really good videos that he's got as well too. But he is one guy that you should probably listen to every once in a while. Even grab his book called Principles. And lots of insight and lots of good information there. So especially with the amount of debt that the U.S. has got going on right now, it's a really scary thought process of what could happen. So yeah, I don't think we're over this yet. My personal opinion.
So I'm glad you mentioned Ray Dalio's book. That's a great book. I was going to mention that if you didn't. So we have another question that's coming in. It's for me, but let's stay on this train of thought here. So it depends on where you are in the world, but let's call it 6 weeks in North America, or at least Canada, US, that we've kind of been in this self-isolation and canceled flights and reduced working and the layoffs and et cetera, et cetera. So, there's a lot of talk in the media, and certainly I know a lot of small business owners, like they weren't gonna be able to make their April rent. So, well, we're, almost out of April now, we're going into May. Now I'm hearing, we're not gonna make our May rent. So I think to your point of, we haven't seen the bottom yet, as far, not talking about the stock market necessarily, but the bottom of like the economic forces and the economic pain that people are going through. You don't have a crystal ball again, I know, but do you think it's like this is a May or a June, or like when are we going to start to see, when are people, and I've heard like, nearly 50% of Canadians as an example are like, one paycheck away from bankruptcy. Like, is this a big May question, or is this a June question? Is they're going to open the economy? I mean, you don't know, I know, but like if something doesn't happen, or we don't get some positive turnaround in the next month, 6 weeks, like where are we at?
Yeah.
In your best opinion. Yeah,
my best opinion is, like I said, the government is doing the best they can to stimulate the economy, which is why we've seen a bit of a recovery here. But to me, that's unsustainable. You can't keep pouring money into a situation, because that catches up to you. And eventually, that $6 trillion that the feds or the US government has done, that's only going to last so long. And they'll try and do it again, I'm sure, if they need to. But that's like, even on a personal level, if we compare, the government level to a personal level, we can only borrow so much money for so long. before it really does catch up to us. And when the government is borrowing money to the, I guess, the general public or the community, that comes back and bites us as well too, because we have to pay that back as taxpayers. So on a time frame of when we're going to come out of this, that's a really tough one. And yeah, it's just you just never know, because like I said, rational thinking or irrational thinking doesn't, it's really hard to predict on what that looks like. But if you just think about it logically for a bit here, I think you could probably see where the future is headed. It's getting tougher and tougher. And as things get tougher and tougher, what does that look like for us as taxpayers and the government and corporations and everybody involved? So yeah, there you go. That's my take.
Okay, so I know, just on that same train of thought, and not to beat this idea down too much, but I think a lot of the stimulus has been promised but hasn't really flowed to people yet. So I think there's been, as an example that I used earlier, landlords were, letting, even though the money hasn't come in, and they were kind of mandated, okay, don't kick people out, give them a 1 month leeway, but we're heading into May now for May rents. Maybe these checks are slowly starting to pour in now, probably this week and next. And again, some of these programs I think don't impact or won't positively impact everyone. I think there's a big chunk of the population. But if nothing else happens, if there's no new stimulus or more money being thrown, as you just mentioned, this could be a May or June thing, right? Where like now it's like, no, you need to leave the premise. You haven't paid rent in 2 months. You don't have any income, and whatever, $1,000 a month or 2,000, whatever, doesn't cover your living expenses anymore because you lost your, whatever, right? It's the reckoning hasn't happened, or is probably still a ways away, I guess.
Yeah, could very well be.
Yeah.
And again, that's always the hard question. Like, when does that happen? When do we run out of money and things actually get worse? And they are going to get worse before they get better, in my opinion. So yeah, that could be, May, June, that's only 2 months away, less than 2 months away, really. And so maybe even be a few months after that even. But every time we go through a correction like this and a recession, it usually does take a couple of years to get out of it. So let's say the bottom is in June or July. Before we rebound to that, it takes time to dig ourselves out of that. So it could be, a couple of years before we get back to normal, or 12 to 18 months before we get back to a normal.
Okay, so we did have a question that came in. It was directed to me. So, and I'll just, before I read that, please, if you have any other questions for Walter or myself, or again, Danica and David are on the call, so they will be speaking tomorrow on mortgages and wills and estate planning. But if you did have a question for them, by all means, you could pre-ask it before they speak tomorrow. But the question was, what types of immune boosting meal planning options and ideas can you provide? Okay, so first of all, much like Walter, it depends. Where's your starting point? It's very individualized. I feel nutrition is very individualized. There's common things that I think most people should incorporate or can do without, but again, is individualized. But here's a general idea, as I'd say, really, boost the foods that provide, those nutrients that I mentioned. Eat lots of fruits and vegetables. Eat, if you're so inclined, eat quality meat, et cetera, like that. Yeah, I'll just do our own household as an example. And I'm not trying to give. This is just generally speaking. Typically we need to know more about a person, just much like Walter would need to know more about a person before he gave any advice. But my kids, we're just ramping up. My kids today, actually, for lunch, they said, Dad, why are we having 3 servings of fruit and 1 serving of vegetables? It's too much. And I was like, right, you gotta, that's what we're having. That's what's going on. So we're really trying to up the fruits and vegetables, citrus fruits to get that vitamin C, for sure. They're for sure having, their vitamins, which they take anyway, but we're doing a little bit more. I'm super glad that it's getting warm outside, so they can get outside in the sun a little bit more. So I would just really healthy things. Don't eat highly processed foods. I'm not a big believer in breads and that sort of thing. But I think having, you know, a whole grain sandwich with, you know, whatever filling you have inside is a lot better than eating half a bag of chips. You know, both are processed items, but one's less processed than the other. So, you know, just make the smartest choices, make the most healthiest choices that make sense for you and your family, would be my advice. But yeah, definitely up the fruits and vegetables. And we're getting into the summer months here, spring going into summer. They'll just become more abundant and cheaper. And yeah, just get out there and eat a lot of that. So I hope that answers the question in a very general sense. And do we have any other questions? We don't have any other questions at the moment. Does anybody else, I know David and Danica are on the call. Do they want to jump in and have any other questions, or Walter or anything like that? Give it a moment here. No? Okay. Well, like I said, if somebody has a question and you want to, you know, answer, you don't get to it today, you want to answer, you can contact one of us directly. You can save it for tomorrow. All four of us will be on tomorrow's call as well. And again, tomorrow we're going to be talking about interest rates and mortgages and wills and estate planning. So yeah, you can save your questions or comments for then. Reach out to us directly. And just again, I'll just reiterate, at the end of this series, after tomorrow, we will be sending out the recordings to all registrants with any of the resources also that we talked about, that the books and links and stuff that Walter mentioned today, and then any that Danica or David might talk about tomorrow as well. So yeah, and it's not too late. Please share this if anybody else you think might be interested in the recordings. Let them know, and they can sign up for tomorrow's and still get the recording from today as well. So we don't have any other questions. So Walter, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate that. And thank you to Danica and David being on the call as well. And we will see everyone tomorrow at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.